What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. Today was a crazy roller coaster, but I want to break it down on what really prompted it, if it was justified, what the data points are saying, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid did go down 4.28%. It did have a nice spike first thing to around 407, and that was correlated because of a recent interview, and that was with Peter. So with Peter doing all these interviews, it is fair to assume, at least based on my expectations, that their Q2 earnings is going to be a home run, because why would Lucid be doing this much marketing if they're just going to flop? So I'm not the only individual that seems to think that. A lot of comments, a lot of people on social media are saying the exact same thing, that Lucid's marketing has really stepped up, and I think that is deserving of a round of applause. And before I get into additional data, I just wanted to kind of bring this up. So Nick Twerk, if I'm saying that right, who is the actual head of communications for Lucid Motors, obsessed with conveyance and whatever else, it's good to see him kind of shouting against misinformation. So not really going to get into the context of any of this, but it's good to see at least their management team is kind of defending Lucid. So I think just a very big change in the environment for the marketing and just how Lucid is kind of presenting themselves is very welcoming. Despite that though, a lot of volatility. So you did have 407 the high, then it did have something come out in the broader market. I want to share that with you in a second. That caused a low of $3.65. A lot of volume, so 57.5 million shares being traded, 33.02 is the average. So you did have another day where institutions were very much getting into Lucid. So 1.88 million and then 1.23 million. So I think overall that's a good thing. A little bit low compared to I think, what was it, tail end of last week, especially when CPI and stuff like that came out, but nonetheless pretty epic day for it being a very crappy market day, because you did see the Nasdaq down 2.77%, S&P down 1.39%. Despite the sell-off, which was largely correlated because of the whole kind of China trade deal, which I'll talk on again in a second, it didn't affect the likelihood of a rate cut or rate cuts, because right now for the September 18th meeting, there is a 93.5% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut, and then that is followed by another 25 basis point cut potentially for the November 7th meeting, because there is a 58.3% likelihood for that. So all in all, this is going to be very good, because this would prompt a very big market rotation back into equities, as I have brought up in previous videos. So definitely that is a good thing. So obviously, sell-offs happen time to time. The market has gone up quite a lot over this last little bit, so somewhat justified if that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, this is really what prompted a lot of volatility. So electric vehicle stocks are jolted by heightened China trade war anxiety. All of this was brought on because of semis. So it's not really kind of linked exactly to EVs, but then again, it kind of is at the same time. So yes, I do feel that obviously trade wars have really affected overall efficiency, but at the same time though, I feel like this sell-off right here wasn't justified based off of that news right there. So this is why you did have a little bit more of an uptick near the tail end of the day. So let me know your thoughts if you did buy the dip or whatever else, and I'll talk on the technicals and why it did bounce off of that, because it'll make a little bit more sense in a second. But there's also this that I do want to play for at the end of the video for you, and it is Peter's latest interview. So he's definitely, like I said, been kind of doing a full 180 based on the marketing. So I think that's a very good indication that their earnings is going to be home run. No new analyst ratings, nothing like that. So that's kind of surprising, because especially based off of all of the marketing that Lucid's been doing, you would anticipate some analysts to kind of think logically that why are they doing this if they didn't have good results? But I don't know, analysts are a little bit slow to everything. Maybe they're just going to wait up until Lucid's actual earnings, which is slated for August the 5th. But Again, we'll just have to wait and see. Shorts did really increase, 737,000 shares. 27.66% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 244.94 million shares overall are being shorted. Utilization 91.82, short score. So the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening is 93.55. And then cost to borrow average is 22.28. So I did do a video earlier today as well, the top 5 most heavily shorted EV stocks, and once again, yours truly for basically the last 2 months, maybe a little bit longer. Lucid's been the king, #1. So once again, if they do have kick-ass earnings this time around for their Q2, and they give very good future guidance. So I've done a video possibly about how they could raise guidance. That would be huge and possibly even enough to prompt a squeeze. So just kind of stay tuned for that. Looking at options though, 1.55 million in calls, 1.95 million in puts. Sentiment wise, somewhat evenly divided, but 49% of all the options being done so far today were bearish. And based on this, so of the call options that were purchased, you do see a consensus for it to be above, roughly around between that 4 and 450. And then looking at puts, you do see a consensus for it to be, looks like sub $4. So in my opinion, even though it did sell off today, a lot of the data points are still optimistic and bullish. And clearly the risk versus reward is very much in favor of upside. But then again, options activity is just more of a sentiment. It does not move the stock price. But I still at the same time recommend a lot of people to learn it because it can be very, very profitable and beneficial. With it closing at $3.80, it is trading between this S1 and the pivot. So 373 will be a strong support that you'll want to watch for it to hold in the coming days. And then 389 will be the next strong resistance / target. And like I said, the low for today was 365, so it did bounce off of this general area of this S2. So 363 is going to be that next kind of line in the sand. And I do believe that sell-off that did happen, I believe it was on Monday, that actually did bounce off of that general area as well. So we do know, at least going into the next several trading days, that this is diamond support. So hopefully that does continue to hold. You did see number of retail investors getting out today. Stochastic, because of the volatility and the pullback, it's somewhat starting to reset Lucid's technicals, because you do see Stochastic, a bearish deviation, but it has gone from roughly around 87, which is very overbought, to around 68. So still overbought, but at least it's cooling off slightly. So that is still very good for the broader technicals. So again, something to kind of keep in mind, but nonetheless, it is still in the higher percentile of the Bollinger Band and above the 50-day moving average. So all in all, the data points are still looking relatively optimistic. So even though it has gone down and it's been very volatile over the last several trading days, I wouldn't really count Lucid down and out. You see a lot of people starting to become very bearish. I think it's a little bit early to do that. If it does break below this point right here of this S2, then it might have a further pullback. But then again, if you kind of think bigger picture, what has really happened with Lucid, just to pull this up right here. So Lucid has actually gone up over this last 1 month, 46.24%. So it's kind of a little bit more of a pullback, is somewhat justified in some cases. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Give yourself a shout out if you have been buying. If you sold, what did you do with Lucid? And one final thing, don't forget to take advantage of this promo. As I always share with you, it is up until July the 31st. So the link to that is in the description below and also comments. But like I mentioned, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly play this video. Then I can go over some of the key highlights that you might want to know.
Had the good fortune to partially interview a robot, which was staged over there. Today, not a robot, but in my layman's term, I'll call it an engine. But what do we have here? What are we looking at?
Well, this is the drive unit from a Lucid Air. This is the propulsion unit that takes the electrical energy from the battery and converts that into rotary motion, which powers the wheels. So we have 3 key elements: a motor, an inverter, and the transmission. All combined, this unit is capable of well over 600 horsepower, and it's created entirely in-house. It's mass-produced in our factory in Arizona.
So let's set the stage a little bit. The company has now been producing vehicles for, are we on year 4 now? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes,
And
since late 21. Yeah.
And the differentiation you talk about is the technology in large part. Can you help the audience explain a little bit why, when they think about EV innovation, they should be thinking about Lucid ahead of whether it's Tesla or some of the fast-growing companies out of China?
All right. Well, there's a general perception that all EVs are born equal. The gasoline cars are bad for the environment, and all EVs are good for the environment. And unfortunately, that isn't true. Just as there's a whole array of goodness within gasoline cars, or badness, and there are gas guzzlers, there are the equivalent of gas guzzler electric cars, and I term those electron guzzlers.
Okay.
And what's really important is that we recognize that and we work assiduously to advance the state of the art of the electric vehicle. That's what Lucid's all about. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm still working like crazy, advancing the state of the art of the electric vehicle. And there's a reason for this. There are two fundamental widespread barriers to the widespread adoption of EVs. One is range anxiety, and the other is the cost of attainment.
And range anxiety, just to make that clear, is the idea that I might not be able to easily get from point A to point B.
You might not make it home, yes.
I mean, I've had that happen to some relatives. They cannot afford a Lucid, but maybe another brand. Go ahead.
So we've addressed range anxiety with when we launched our first Lucid Air Dream Edition in late 2021 with 520 miles of range.
It's a lot.
That's a lot, and I think I mean, it's still the longest range car. We still have 100 miles more range than the nearest competitor in the market today. So we've really addressed range anxiety in terms of that range. And also, we can charge 200 miles in just 12 minutes. So you could travel 700 miles in a day with just 12 minutes downtime. I think that you'd need that for other reasons rather than the limit of the car. But the other aspect, the other main barrier to widespread adoption is just the cost of attainment. And when we look at why does an electric vehicle cost so much, a large part of it is the cost of the battery. In our cars, relatively high-end cars, the battery represents...
Can you just let the audience know sort of your price range on your current, current vehicle?
So a Lucid starts at $69,900 with a Lucid Air Pure, and it goes right the way up to $249,000 for our supercar, the Lucid Air Sapphire.
Right in my journalist salary range.
Indeed.
Yeah,
indeed.
just
suits you.
Yeah, and that's after a few. The lower end is after a few price cuts in the last year. Is that correct?
Well, that's kind of misunderstood. What's happened is we've been able to bring out successively more affordable versions of the car, which has meant that we've been able to address a more attainable price point as a result of bringing those models out. So that's been a large reason for hitting the magic 69,900. Yeah.
Got it. And where are you in this evolution of trying to both keep this technology differentiation, investing in it, and also making a car that may be more than just the 0.1% can afford? Or is that your market and you want to?
No, not at all. So one of the biggest misunderstandings about Lucid is people think we're some niche luxury player, and nothing could be further from the truth. I'm not here to operate in a niche. We want to be huge. We want to be a mainstream player. We had to start with a relatively high-end product because paradoxically, the cost of industrializing a car is inversely proportional to the cost of the car.
So is that partially
strange?
I mean, so just looking at, you're a public company, looking at financials from last year, just to give context, around 600 million in revenue last year. Is that, am I right there? Mm-hmm. Okay, and about 3 billion in operating loss. Am I? Mm-hmm. So is that part of what? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, it would be worse if we tried to go with a relatively affordable car to start with. It's that bad when you go for a high-end product because the cost of a factory for a high-end car is significantly less than for a low price point car.
Why is that?
Because that's all about volume. So if you're going to make a Rolls-Royce, Not many people can afford a Rolls-Royce, so the factory is pretty small. You don't need tooling that's going to be really hard and make thousands of parts, so the tooling costs can be less. You can have a lot of it hand-built. So the cost of a Rolls-Royce factory is low, but the price of a Rolls-Royce is pretty high. And conversely, if you're making a Volkswagen Golf, that's all about numbers. You'd need to spend zillions on a huge factory with a huge degree of automation. I would have had to, Lucid as a startup, I'd have had to raise an extra 10 billion if I were to take that route. It would have been prohibitive. I wouldn't be speaking to you now. So we had to start with a high-end product first, and this is a well-trodden path in Silicon Valley.
And so a next product that you will be starting to deliver or rolling off the line this year is an SUV. And
Yes.
I think we have a video to show. Is that correct?
Please, yes.
Okay, let's see that. So can you let's talk about what we're watching here. This is the earliest days of what would you call it?
Well, this is our Gravity SUV, and this is in our design studio. This is the interactive process between design, styling design, and engineering in creating a car. We still use traditional clay modeling techniques linked with a completely digital array of tools, from digital wind tunnel to digital crash analysis, for example.
So there are a lot of experts and industry analysts who believe that you need to nail this vehicle in terms of both, yes, the supply, but the demand side.
Totally.
For Lucid to have a long-term future. Is that fair?
Yeah, so our finances are really, I mean, you touched on our finances. They're dominated by scale. We need more scale. And that way we can amortize our fixed cost. And that is the route to profitability for us. And there are 4 steps to achieving scale. We need to grow the word that we've got the best car on the planet available now in the Lucid Air. More and more people are recognizing this. We've just come off record quarterly sales. We're up 70% year on year. We're bucking that EV trend. Sell more Airs, get Gravity, the SUV, into production. That's got about 6 times the total addressable market. Then we move to the big one.
What's the price point there?
Well, it's going to be from just under 80,000. So it's still relatively high end.
And is that price point related to tax credits? Or
unfortunately, it's above, the Air is above the tax credit threshold, but the lowest end version of Gravity just gets it in to the 7,500 federal tax incentive by virtue of it being as SUV.
Okay.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. You were in the midst of saying.
No, I was in full flow there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we moved to the big one, the exciting one, ladies and gentlemen. Late 26, where our mid-sized platform vehicle is scheduled for start of production. That's where we compete with Tesla Model 3 and Model Y. Price point from about $48,000, and we're designing that to be capable of 1 million units per annum.
I mean this in the most respectful way possible. Is that 2026 date reality?
I believe it is. I wouldn't say so otherwise.
I also do want to field some questions from the audience, so I'll come back to you in a minute. I have to ask you about a certain person who you once worked for, and his name is Elon Musk. Over the last few years, he has taken a few opportunities to come at you in a couple of ways. One has been related to trying to minimize the role you had in the creation of the Model S. Mm-hmm. Another was at one point related to a stock compensation package you had right after, I think shortly after the IPO and the SPAC. Mm-hmm. 2 questions about Elon. One is, what do you think is behind that? And then the second question is, when was the last time you talked to him?
Well, it's surprising that little Lucid has attracted so much of his attention. We must have something going on to do that. And regarding my package, which has been so misreported, the package that you're referencing was all very, very substantially, very high percentage in shares. and I've sold not one of those, and it was all performance-based because I co-founded the company, took it public, and it was a recognition of all that good work. Yeah.
I made the journalist error of asking 2 questions at once, so I'll restate my second one, which was, yes. When was the last time you've spoken to him?
That was when I handed my resignation to him when I was at Tesla.
How did that go?
Well, you might imagine.
Okay. One more Elon-related question, because it's very newsy. In the last day or two, he has come out with a sort of full-fledged supportive former President Trump in his re-election campaign. He has also, there's reports that he is now, I guess, giving $45 million a month to Trump's a Trump-associated PAC. I'm curious. There are some Tesla customers who may be fine with that or like that. Others not so much. I'm curious if you see any impact on your business potentially from Elon stepping into politics in a big way.
Well, I think this is another salient example of his level of distraction. Tesla used to have the lead in electric vehicle technology. They truly were the pathfinder. There was an absolute laser focus there. And I think that now the mantle has passed to Lucid. Just this morning, we formally announced a landmark, a technological landmark, that we were able to achieve 5.0 miles per kilowatt hour for an electric vehicle. This is a major step forward in saving the planet. This is the most efficient use of energy achieved by any electric vehicle. We've registered also a record 146 mpge, and these are not claims by Lucid. These are validated by the Environmental Protection Agency. And this puts Lucid at least 4 years ahead of Tesla in what I think is a critical technology race to help save the environment.
Do we have any questions from the audience? I have a few more. I saw one back here first. Please just tell us who you are and try to keep it concise if possible.
𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧, co-founder and CEO of Nanoware. Jason, you touched upon in the beginning, and Peter, you were just ending on it. Your discussions with regulators in DC in this space with transportation, not only the Department of Transportation, but also Congress. How has that evolved? Because they have to be your partners in this. And is that 2035 goal, Jason, that you touched upon, having discussions in DC on a federal level?
Totally. I'm actually headed towards DC next week because I see a responsibility from someone like myself to help guide the knowledge of the EV space, because the decision makers, they're making decisions which will last potentially a generation or more. They need the wisdom of Solomon, and it's very difficult for them to get their heads around this weird and wacky world of EVs. So I'm delighted that we can play our small parts in providing technical data so that their decisions can be based upon facts and best evidence.
Does another Trump administration potentially help or hurt your vision for Lucid?
Look, I'm politically agnostic. What my vision is to really accelerate the uptake of not just sustainable EVs, but the EVs which are affordable via their sustainability. And this is critical. This isn't just chasing the semantics of a technical solution with technical excellence. If we can build EVs which go further with less batteries, we go to the very heart of the main barrier for EV adoption, the cost of the battery. And that's what my focus is, not politics.
I'm going to come to you in 1 second. I do have one more question. You know, you are a public company, but you are 60% or more owned by the Saudi Arabia Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yes.
They've invested more than $6 billion in your company.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you have enough cash right now to sustain the company through middle of next year.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
What kind of guarantees do you have from them that they won't walk away at a certain point and go to plan B?
First of all, they have been the perfect partner, long term, and this partnership transcends a mere financial investment because we're in this together, long term. They have a vision for their country and it's a bold vision, to transition their country away from fossil fuels to a sustainable economy for 2030. We're a cornerstone of that. We're in this together.
So you don't fear them walking away?
They want our cars as much as we want them. Maybe almost as much as I want to do this. We're in this together. Now, I can't make promises for them, absolutely not, and it would be very imprudent for me to do that. But to date, they have been wonderful and outstanding and strong long-term partners with a shared vision.
Let's try one more quick question here. We have about a minute.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. I'm a co-founder CFO of the next-gen battery company. And two questions. One is, I heard because of the more and more harsh competition for the price, particularly with the Chinese EV makers, nowadays car OEMs are more interested in cheaper battery rather than high energy density battery that was very popular 3-4 years ago, if it's true or not. And secondly, unlike solid-state battery or lithium metal battery that may or may not take 10 to 15 years for the commercialization, what if you have the battery with high energy density, high power density, with safer features, with a cheap price and mass production feasibility within 2-3 years? Is it your interest or not?
Well, of course, that's a panacea. Is it my interest? It's music to my ears. So we have to trade multiple attributes: cost, gravimetric energy density, and just the scalability of that. Our technology, our advancements, works with high energy batteries or low energy. It's equally applicable.
We're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you for the great questions as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this discussion.
So yeah, honestly, another very good interview. A couple of things that I wanted just to kind of go over. So he did actually state the price of that, at least tentatively, that low-priced mid-sized SUV that's slated for late 2026, which he did kind of reiterate and confirm. I think he mentioned is 45 or 48. So that's a pretty good price point, not to the same level as what was, I guess, he previously, or at least the Wall Street was estimating. I think they were wanting 40, if I remember correctly, or at least that's new information to me. I don't know if that's, he's previously stated that, but still, Lucid's tech is next level stuff. I liked how he was kind of asked about Elon. Even though it's nothing really to buy Lucid based off of or sell, you saw the true, genuine Peter. And I think that was very kind of throughout the whole interview was very apparent. So yeah, I think all in all, pretty good stuff. Let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And with all that, appreciate all of you watching.